We're talking again with Kevin Huntsman. Kevin is the president of market research firm Mastio Company based in St. Joe's, Missouri. Mastio Company has recently done a market study of the top 10 film markets for polyethylene film. And we are conducting a 10-part video series in which we're discussing some of the technical trends in equipment, in processing, and in materials in all of these markets. And we are counting up to the number one market. Right now, we are here to talk about the number 3 market for polyethylene film based on Mastio's research, and that is consumer trash bags. So, Kevin, what do you have for us?
Well, first off, thank you, Jim. Consumer trash bags, an interesting industry. We look at the companies that are manufacturing the film for this. The top 3 hold nearly 70% of the market, Jim. So very focused on the top side. We did profile a little over 12, or I could say 12 companies that did manufacture this particular product. And it's a nearly 1.4 billion pound market. It's one of those markets, Jim, that there's a lot of resin going into this market, but from a growth rate perspective, it's one of the slowest growing markets at just about a 1% AAGR. So the dichotomy in the size versus the growth is interesting. It's an interesting market, just given the fact, the strength of the store brands, Jim. And when we look at this particular market, there's always understanding and trying to learn what drives the growth or the lack thereof. Obviously, the economy has a significant impact, as we often hear lately, the economic slowdown. That's going to drive people in many instances to more of the store brands and away from some of the brands that are higher cost, higher margin, or maybe scented bags that smell like flowers or whatever that might be. So there's a lot of add-ons to some of these higher value brands versus some of the store brands that you see at the store today.
So obviously in this market, you have a couple of very well-known players who have very well-known, very well-established, and well-marketed products, and they are going against the store brands, which tend to be less expensive. But there's a tremendous amount of volume going into those store brands, and I guess there are a couple of very significant companies who are pumping a lot of resin through their dyes to making these products for the big box retailers.
Well, and it's the same companies that are often marketing their own brands as well. So yeah. So when you only have 12 companies making it, some of you take who's selling to a Walmart or a Target, those are very large buyers of the store brands. So there's some duplication there of a company making their own brand, but also potentially selling into the store brand market as well.
So how do they distinguish, between what they are offering under their label? Is it different materials? Is it a less complicated film structure, lower in quality?
I think all of the above, and I think it's definitely a lower end product. It doesn't have some of the things that I mentioned earlier around the scents and how you can handle and the drawstring and different things like that.
Right.
So there are some distinct differences associated with that store brand versus the national brand when they're looking at the options on the shelf.
Now, I know the producers in this market are looking at their footprint and in their sustainability footprint and have sustainability goals. But since these products are disposed of and are supposed to be disposed of, how are they getting their hands on reclaim or even industrial scrap to incorporate in their product so that they can have a story to tell when somebody says, what are you doing from a sustainability standpoint?
I think it's a great question. Obviously they're using their own PCR, but they're also trying to secure other avenues to go do this. And I think potentially in some of the more store brands, there's going to be more of a recycled content just due to the lower quality versus some of the national brands that pride themselves on that ability to stretch without breaking. So I think as if you look at mechanical recycling or chemical recycling, Jim, you're going to see some of that integration into these brands. So they do have that story to tell. And obviously some states are pushing these companies to to get to that point more quickly
Right.
than some of the others, which will obviously drive just that manufacturing process and the product process across the country. So something I know in our interviews, it's at the forefront of everybody's mind of how they can become more sustainable in this market, because you're right. It's trash going into a trash bag that's ending up in a landfill.
Right.
How can I, as the manufacturer of this bag, do my part so when that bag does hit the landfill that it can degrade more quickly?
Well, one thing I'm sure that most of these guys are doing and have been doing for a long time is making their bags thinner, using less material. And, so that would be certainly part of the sustainability story.
It is. And what's interesting with that, I mean, it's a blown film industry, obviously, but it's mostly a monolayer construction. But I think within that monolayer construction, you've had some improvements in the resin itself. So some of these higher end, what I call store brands, I think have their advantage when we talk about versus the national versus the stores. There's a lot of metallocene used, Jim. Right. So you're going to see a greater degree of that being used in that high quality national brand versus the lower end store brand. That's how you can compensate for that difference in price and in quality that's associated with that. I mean, this is mostly a linear low density market, as you can well imagine. And within that, some constructions around the type of metal, not the type, but the metallocene being used, as well as hexene and octene that's in creating a bag that withstands the challenges within the home of stretching out and the other things that the homeowner looks for when they're using this bag.
Yeah, it's still being a strong monolayer market. I guess it's a little bit surprising to me, because I would figure as scrap reclaim becomes more prevalent, having a 3-layer structure gives you a little more flexibility to bury the scrap in there. But I guess in a monolayer structure, you can also do some blending.
Yeah, we did see that in here as well. And I do think just we talk about the equipment as well, and the advances in the equipment that's manufacturing this film is I think also allowing them to create products with metallocene or with butene that can withstand that at a monolayer construction. Right. And we see that too as these advances come along within the recycling that I mentioned earlier, as well as how they can run that product through the equipment so they can attain and maintain production levels that they require for the margin that they need for a trash bag.
Right, right. Kevin, thanks very much for your insights on the consumer trash bag market. Again, this is a 10-part series that Kevin and I are doing, looking at the top 10 markets for polyethylene film. This is the 8th one we have covered. We have 2 more to go. If anyone is interested in what we have had to say on those 8 markets, I would advise that you check out the Plastics Technology YouTube channel, or check out the Plastics Technology LinkedIn channel, or my personal LinkedIn channel, Jim Callari. Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
All righty.